You've seen many people make these things where people predict what certain things say about you, including a programming language, but you know what they say, nobody does it like diinki does. First up, we have the OG C. The backbone of technological society is built upon C. It is the substrate of our entire world. If you code in C, you're either very well composed, or you've done it for so long that you've lost your mind. You probably think in C. Regardless, C is an OG. This is you if you code in C, for sure. If you've written like 10,000 lines on a project, as a C programmer, you've probably turned your room into a schizophrenic work of art. 10 out of 10, easily. Cannot disrespect C. Java. It's a garbage collected language. It's one of the languages where people tried to make a more approachable programming language, higher level than C, basically. If you code in Java, you're probably an academic. You learned it on computer science classes in university, which is why you code in it and probably work on projects with Java. Definitely means you're in debt. You've wasted a lot of money on learning things that you could have learned by just Googling it, in the modern day at least. Java is slow and it's overly convoluted for what it is. It's outdated, so to speak. If you still code in Java, shame on you. It's definitely a language that should know its place and kind of die off, and be replaced with other languages that use the Java virtual machine. 4 out of 10. Java is distasteful for sure. C#. C# is, imagine Java, but with all the bullshit removed, and also added Microsoft to the equation. That's basically C#. You're probably a game developer if you code in C#. It's the main attraction. Or you work for some government gig, or some fintech startup, to be honest. Yeah, that makes lots of sense. I'd imagine a fintech startup to code its backend in C#. Unlike Java, C# knows its place, and so do you. You don't step out of bounds. You're a very moderate person coding in C#. You code in it because it gets the job done. You're not an elitist. No one is an elitist about C#. It's just there. It's a tool for a job. You're a hard-working person. Yeah, that makes sense. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Speaking of languages that know their place, Python is not one of them. What's meant to be a scripting language, taking on simple and trivial tasks, quickly stepped out of bounds, taking on complicated tasks that should be more optimized than what they currently are, simply because people coded in Python. Very convoluted language. Well, it's simple, but working on complicated things quickly makes it unsuitable. It's suboptimal. Definitely AI bro vibes if you code in Python, yeah. Maybe you work at Google, who knows. AI bro millennial vibe. That's what Python gives off. Or you're just learning programming. You might be a newbie if you're learning Python as well. There's also that possibility. Hopefully you quickly realize the pitfalls of Python and switch on to C, which I think is a good language to start programming with. You have to jump right in, you know? Python could have been good if it knew its place. I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Javascript/Typescript. It's a necessary evil, you know? You're just an innocent web developer coding in JS/TS. You don't realize it, but you've accidentally introduced a vulnerability into your code, and it led to someone compromising your web app, costing your startup quite a lot of money. What was the culprit? Who knows? Maybe some function that didn't do proper type checking. That's the pain of JavaScript. It's very simple and dangerous. However, with TypeScript, it adds a lot of safety and a lot of style. You probably use JavaScript in conjunction with a library like React or Vue. It's wholesome if you do this kind of stuff, to be honest. It's 6 out of 10. You're very innocent if this is your main deal. Let's go back to low-level land. C++. Very similar to C, but with object-oriented programming, polymorphism, an infinitely more convoluted and expanded upon standard library. C++ is like C, but with a lot of dark circles added beneath the eyes. Whereas coding in C gave you the possibility to be sane, yet very exhausted and burnt out, C++ completely throws that possibility out of the door. You're absolutely insane. And if you're not visibly insane, then you definitely hide it. I know that it's there deep in your heart. I know who you are. C++, it's an OG, but it has its flaws. It tried to be the next step from C. However, some people believe that it was a misstep. Yet it has historical importance. You cannot disrespect the OGs. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Rust. I code in Rust. Rust is like C++, right? Same low-levelness. However, disregard the boomers and add in the zoomers. That's basically the only difference. It's zoomer C++. That's what Rust is. In C++, you have dark circles under your eyes because of all the memory leaks you caused. In Rust, all that stuff is replaced by the compiler literally imposing its will down your throat, abusing you. So it's that kind of abuse that gets you if you're a Rust programmer. You have to respect that. Rust has its own style, it's unique. It has its own substance. It introduces something new to the table. It looked at C and C++ and said, I can do C++ better. And it did its own thing. I respect that kind of behavior. 10 out of 10. Assembly. Well, assembly takes on many different shapes and forms, but I said that C was the substrate that the technological revolution was built upon. Well, assembly is the substrate that C was built upon, and many other higher level languages than assembly. So, it's a substrate of everything. It's just, you cannot hate on assembly. Every single other language eventually becomes assembly code. So while assembly is deceptively simple with simple CPU instructions, when you want to make something complicated with such a simple language or languages, you will go insane. There's no question about it. If you code an assembly in that kind of manner, well, yeah, I don't even need to. I'll let you imagine what kind of person you become. You have horrifically beautiful art on your walls and your entire home, scattered across, notes everywhere. Your consciousness is so spilled, you cannot contain all of it in your mind. Your skull is a limit. Of course, dark circles beneath your eyes, very obvious. You're a tortured genius. Your brain is a CPU and it runs Linux. That's the kind of person you are if you code an assembly. 10 out of 10. What's the PHP programmer's favorite food? Honestly, I don't know, but I do know where he gets it from. The garbage collector. Yeah, if you main PHP, honestly, where is your shame? That's the only question I have for you. 2 out of 10. Golang. More like, go and install Rust. Go has lots of rivalry with Rust. Because, well, they all kind of emerge in the same time trying to compete for a user base. But they're very different languages, and I will try to be unbiased here. The average Go programmer is quite similar to Rust, but minus the dark circles beneath the eyes. Go is higher level, it's easier, it's a garbage collected language, less performant, but it's easier to code in. It was meant to be like a lower level language for the web, I suppose. That's kind of the energy Golang has. It's less zoomer and more millennial, I would say. If you're a Go programmer, you probably have button-up shirts. You probably drink coffee instead of Monster Energy drink. You get the idea. Go is a neat language that knows its place, which is very good. However, it's not as revolutionary in its concepts as I would say Rust is. So you take less risks if you code in Go, and you're less willing to accept pain, which is fair, like most people. You're quite the usual person. It's cozy. 7 out of 10. Cobol. Cobol is the red hat of programming languages, and it just won't die despite its old age. It's like a shitty politician that's still committing war crimes to this day, and everyone just wants it to die. And the best part is that Cobol doesn't get imprisoned despite its war crimes because it's American. It just won't go away. It's a nuisance to literally everyone. Shitty language, shitty vibe, shitty energy. 0 out of 10. And that concludes our short list. Obviously couldn't go through everything. Using my psychic abilities, it is exhausting. I was pondering my orb for hours the other day, specifically for this project. It's like I said, nobody does it like the diinki does.